So welcome, Deepika, to Keen on Yoga. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Adam.
Yeah,
Thank you for having me.
yeah, lovely to see you. Really just give a little basic overview of how you got into yoga, because I know that you had a quite an interesting trajectory with a climbing accident and a
Yeah,
rehabilitation. It's an interesting story to share.
yeah. Well, it seems like another lifetime. So
Yeah,
it's like for me now, it's a story. But like
yeah.
when I go back, basically I was around 21, I think, or 22, and I was very fascinated with mountaineering and rock climbing. And I had just done a mountaineering course, which was, I was thinking I'm going to become a mountaineer. I mean, when you're that young,
Yeah,
everything seems like you're going to become,
absolutely. As soon as
yeah,
you like something, yeah, I'm going to do
I'm
that.
going to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So I had done this course, which was pretty like high level. And then I got back and I was doing some free bouldering without any ropes and stuff. And I remember climbing a rock and I climbed up, but I didn't know how to come down because it was pretty like it was quite intense. And I fell off the rock and it was around 40 feet and I broke my ankle and
40
my
feet.
arm. And basically after that, it took me like, I mean, I was in hospital for a long time. I was
Oh,
on
you're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I was on a bed for a very long time, on a wheelchair for a long time, and then with crutches. And so it took me like 2 years to really get back. And
Mm,
that's where I discovered yoga and, the
right.
whole spiritual aspect of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that a part of the rehabilitation or just something you started to do afterwards? Or
Back then in India, like, I mean, this is more than 20 years back, and there was not really there was not really very good rehabilitation focus. There was not very good
right.
physiotherapy and stuff like that. So this is just my own like exploration. I was just
Mm,
like, I was just doing very base. I don't even think I was doing rehabilitation. There was no structured rehabilitation.
right.
The doctor just told me you're going to take rest for however long it takes to get out of your cast, to get onto your crutches, whatever, and then we're going to see what happens, kind of thing. It was not
Mm,
very
mm,
structured back then in India. And I had always been very active. I'd always loved dance and movement and trekking. I used to love trekking a lot. And so the thought of just being in bed, like pretty much on my own for so long, it was pretty daunting.
mm,
And the rest of my friends were in college, and, I felt a bit left behind. I felt quite depressed.
mm,
And so I started, reading up on pranic healing.
mm.
And then I discovered this book called Autobiography of a Yogi by
Oh yeah, yeah,
Paramahamsa
yeah, yeah,
Yogananda. And that
yeah.
just,
Fantastic book. Yeah, yeah,
sparked an interest in me
yeah,
in
yeah,
this world of energetics and the power of, mind over matter and all of
yeah,
this kind
yeah,
of stuff.
yeah.
And so for me, that's what yoga meant. It was not really such like so asana based because I was not really able to move. My whole entire left side of my body was in a like kind of in a cast. But it was more like the thought and the philosophy of it, connecting to the breath and connecting to a higher power inside. For
Mm,
me, that was what I
mm,
was very attracted to, this kind of feeling
mm,
of connecting to my own power.
mm, mm,
And,
mm.
it started off like that. I started doing very gentle asanas just on my bed because I couldn't put my foot on the ground. And it just gave me a glimpse into something which made me feel peaceful.
Mm.
And it kind of really sparked my interest. And then I just went on a whole, journey with that.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
I always reflect back when I started, and you didn't really need to do much, right? Like I mean,
Yeah.
just basically a forward fold with breathing, or like one of the kind of like old fashioned kind of like side twists,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was almost enough. And you just feel it's like you feel amazing. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
I'm,
Yeah.
even though like you've been active, I was playing every sport under the sun. There's
Yeah.
something kind of different, when you started
Yeah.
doing that with the breath. Even though you're just doing so little at the time, when I look back of what I was doing,
Yeah.
it was so profound in its
Yeah.
effects. I
Yeah.
don't really still understand it to this day. And
Yeah.
again, like you reading like, the Paramatsa Yogananda and the William Dalrymple stuff and
Yeah.
Arnold's Light on Asia, Siddhartha, all
Yeah,
these kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
books that really,
Yeah.
really fire you up,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. How did you get into Ashtanga then from there?
So, I mean, it was a very long journey. First, I just, I started baby steps, literally. So when I watched my baby, literally, I went through that process. I had a very strong sense of, I don't know, something about these books really set off this very deep sense of passion in me, for movement, because literally I was like, on a bed, like without being able to move. So it felt like being in jail, like in a cage. And suddenly that was all I wanted, was to be able to move.
Yeah,
So I remember, I mean, from firstly, I would just be in bed, do my yoga practice, and do some little bits of movement to music, all kinds of really funny things. But then gently, as I started learning to, just being able to take a step and a step, I remember I would have a diary and I would write, I took 5 steps today and 6 steps. And then my parents had a house in the mountains in India. I'd studied in the mountains for a while, so I have a very deep connection with the mountains. And so we moved there for a while, and I remember I would just walk, a few steps every day, and that was basically what it was. But like I said, there was a very deep passion, for movement. And then eventually I went to Rishikesh, over a period of time as I got more mobile. I went to Rishikesh and I did some Hatha yoga. And back then, yoga was not as hip, as it
yeah,
is now.
yeah,
Even in
yeah.
India, it's been a revival, literally.
Totally.
And back then, it was really like you had to really search to find a good teacher.
In
And I
Rishikesh.
remember even in
You were
even in
searching in Rishikesh. Oh my
yeah,
God.
yeah.
That just
Especially
shows you how.
especially
Absolutely.
an urban Indian, it was like an urban Indian woman. All the things, young girl, all the things which they would not think of as a person who would be attracted to yoga. You would have to be
Right.
a monk or an ascetic or somebody who wanted to like really was seeking in like wearing white robes and beads and all of that kind of
Ah.
stuff, or really old, and very
Yeah.
sick. So I remember looking for a teacher and then getting into asana practice, and then eventually I went to the Shivananda Yoga Kendra. I got into Shivananda Yoga and I went to the Shivananda Yoga Kendra. I did a few teacher trainings, so I went to Vivekananda Yoga Kendra in Bangalore.
Yeah.
It's called the Swasa. They're big time into therapy and stuff like this. From there, I went to Shivananda Yoga Kendra and I did a teacher training. It's in Kerala, and I mean, it was beautiful. I thought I was going to become like a hermit. It was such a beautiful, like a really yogi way of living, like from the morning to the evening, there was like a routine where you would meditate and do karma yoga and chanting and bhakti yoga and asana and pranayam. And I remember there, I saw somebody doing Ashtanga, and at back then it was really in the jungle and it was very wild. And I remember seeing this person doing this practice, and I'd always loved dance. And so when I saw this person moving and there was this kind of rhythm and it was in the jungle, I was like, wow, this is incredible. What is this? It really looked like so incredible watching somebody just moving continuously, like with an energetic element. And so I asked this person, and he said, "Oh, you're Indian. You should know about this." I was like, "Oh, I have no idea." He said, "There's a teacher in Mysore, and I learned this. It's Ashtanga." And so then eventually I got the address. I wrote a letter to Guruji, to Patabi Jois, and but of course I didn't get any answer or whatever. But so then I ended up going to Mysore, and then I went to meet him. And even he didn't believe I was Indian because there was not so many young, modern Indians who were coming back then. It was more
Right.
locals, like more the
Yeah.
local people. And so then I started practicing with him, and that's it.
And
I was just hooked.
right. And that
Yeah,
was in the old Shala. I mean,
yeah,
what kind of
old
like
Shala.
late 90s, early
To
2000s, I
to
suppose.
2001, I think, or 2002. Yeah.
Right. Did you spend a long time there? I mean, did you?
The
Yeah. How did it
first
get?
trip,
Yeah.
the first trip was 3 months, and then I went back a few times, and it was just incredible. I remember being in this room, and everybody there looked really edgy. There was no like normal looking people. Either
Right.
they
Right.
had tons of tattoos or they had
Right.
piercings or they were wearing black. And then I was like, wow, this is like this secret fight club of yoga. And I was like, this is where I want to learn. It's so mysterious. And like, this is like this small little, like, it was just very attractive and also very intimidating for an Indian. I was not used to meeting so many Westerners back then. And the practice, of course, was very intimidating because, everybody was so advanced. And so, yeah, like I was hooked. Yeah.
But and you made a lot. I mean, incredible amount of progress through after your injury. I mean, you developed into the advanced series, and I think you did really succeed with it. And subsequently, though, you've become a mother more recently. So I wanted to particularly talk to you today about how things are. The most interesting, how things have really changed. And how yoga has deepened for you, and how yoga has expanded for you. On becoming a mother, because I know, for all women, it's a huge change, and how, I mean, on the first, just off the top of your head, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you, with how things have changed?
It's been the biggest practice, like life-changing practice for me. I think after my accident, this has been the most life-changing practice because first of all, Mark and me had not planned,
oh, you didn't? Oh,
no,
I thought you did. Oh,
no.
Right, okay.
And
okay.
I was really, working on my practice. And then I didn't get my period for a while. And I was telling Mark something is wrong. Maybe I'm going to have menopause or God knows what. And he was like, no, a friend of mine said, no, maybe you should check it out. And then I figured I was pregnant. So it was challenging for me to accept at first. Because I had never really thought of myself as a mother.
You weren't planning to have children?
Not really. I've never been attracted to being a mother. So,
right.
it was really quite really like destiny, and like complete change of like, where you thought you were heading towards. But for sure, I mean, I have to say, it is definitely, I don't want to, cliches and whatever. Everybody says the same thing, but I do feel it is number one, the most intense practice, spiritual practice that I think you can ever do. And also, it really has given me a sense of purpose, even though it's been so challenging, even physically, it's been very challenging for me. It's just given me this deep sense of purpose because I really feel like I need to work on myself now. Like relationships, like having a child who's your mirror. Literally, my friend used to tell me this. She was like, you're going to have your mirror. Like she's going to reflect all the stuff that you feel like you've been hiding from yourself. And I see that. And I've really, it's made me really want to work on myself. It's given me this new, and also you want to bring up this person as well as you can.
Of course. Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah.
First thing that comes to mind is what I mean. I'm intrigued as to, like, could you give an example of what she's reflecting back to you? Like what
so, like, if I'm really like, of course, the nights are pretty exhausting even now for Mark and me. But because I'm still breastfeeding, it's a little physically more exhausting. But if I'm really grumpy, which is quite easy because you're hormonal, you've not slept, you like, oh, I want to do my practice and now I have to sit and do this. All those thoughts go on in your head. And literally, I can see her reflecting that back on me. She'll be like, oh, but I don't want to be near you if you don't, like.
Right.
I mean, she wouldn't say that. Of course, she's a baby, but you can really sense like every emotion. Like I can sense that she is also she's
picking it up.
She's her own little person, So like we have to be so careful of what we're modeling, as in like what she's seeing in us. Because if she sees her parents always aggressive and fighting and kind of resenting having to be with her, but actually wanting to just do a yoga practice, the child picks up on that, even if they're really young. It's very subtle. So I really had to let go a lot and just drop. Like sometimes in the morning, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do this today. But then I wake up, I'm with her, and then she wants to be with us, right? And like, we're like, okay, I'm just like, this is my practice right now. I've been practicing for this practice, So I don't need to practice anymore
Yeah.
putting my leg behind my head. What I need to practice is being present with this child. So yeah, it's she's really teaching us both. I mean, I would say it's equal for Mark and me.
Yeah.